I've done 3 podcasts, I think, in the last couple of months that were aimed at bringing this information to a broader audience. There seems to some degree to be a salability issue, or maybe it's just too soon. And like all this good news in some sense is relatively recent and the word may just not have spread. Any ideas about what could be done to counter the pessimistic and apocalyptic narratives that seem to dominate the public landscape?
Well, you're doing it right now by interviewing me. I'm doing it by having this website, which is made all the more useful by the fact that we didn't come up with this data. It's freely available on many different platforms around the world. If you think that I'm full of it, go to Our World in Data, go to the World Bank, go to the IMF, go to Eurostat. If you are interested in the state of the world, there's plenty of data out there that can show you that the state of the world is much better than it is. Secondly, and I'm wondering if this is even possible, but secondly, what if people start understanding more about their biases, about how they perceive the world? You know, that this is obviously done in colleges and universities, in psychology courses, as well as in biology courses and things like that. But, you know, it's not as though human beings are incapable of changing their worldview based on evidence. We no longer believe that a sacrifice of a little child will produce better harvest. So we've learned that lesson. We no longer believe that throwing a virgin into a volcano is going to give us military success. We no longer believe in all sorts of things that we have taken for granted. In other words, we have shown that we are capable of learning and learning from evidence. We have internalized that focusing on irrigation and fertilization is a better way to produce food than prayer. And that gives me hope that as we move forward, we'll be able to learn more about the rest of the world, internalize not just that information, but also why we are being pessimistic and negative. What do you think about that?
Well, I'm listening and I'm thinking it through. I'm also wondering, I would say that learning this material has lifted some of the existential weight from me. Things aren't as bad as they're trumpeted to be. In fact, they're quite a bit better, and they're getting better. And so we're doing a better job than we thought. There's more to us than we thought. We're adopting our responsibilities as stewards of the planet rapidly. We are moving towards improving everyone's life. I lived under an apocalyptic shadow my whole life. I mean, I don't want to complain about that too much because I lived in a very rich place and I had all sorts of advantages and all of that. But the apocalyptic narrative was still extraordinarily powerful and demoralizing. And it looks to me that there are reasons to doubt its validity on all sorts of dimensions. And I'm not sure what that will do to people, but hopefully it'll make us more optimistic and positive and less paranoid and afraid and happier with who we are, but still willing to participate in improving the future. And to lift some of the weight off young people who are constantly being told that the planet is going to burn to a cinder in the next 20 years. And
well, that's not happening. That's not happening. And people who push that agenda in the newspapers and elsewhere are completely irresponsible and cruel. But that leads to perhaps the final point from my end. Like you, I have become much more optimistic, not much more happy in my own personal life once I realized that so much around me I didn't have a right to complain about, and I should be grateful for. I should be grateful for that I'm not a peasant in 17th century, or or
and appreciative of what's brought us here.
And that's the key, is that people who do not understand the crucial role that political and economic liberalization, opening, inclusion has played in launching the Industrial Revolution, showing us the path, the rest of the world, a path to prosperity. If they don't understand that everything we have is underpinned by a certain economic and political system, both of them terribly imperfect. But look at the alternative. Look at the difference between Chile, the extraordinary success of that country after it embraced free markets, and the collapse of Venezuela, where people eat cats and dogs. Look at the difference between Botswana, which is a relatively free economy, and its neighbor, Zimbabwe, where people have experienced hyperinflation of 96 stillion%. Look at the difference between East and West Germany, between the United States and the USSR. Look at the difference between North and South Korea. If you just called it the worst possible regime in the world, I think you're right on that. I'm pretty sure you're right on that. And that regime is still out there. If you have a problem with liberal democracy and competitive enterprise, fix those problems incrementally, one by one. Don't burn down the system, because the alternatives, as you can see in the world, are much worse.